We have something like less than 800 days, and then we're going to elect public officials again. Our chronicles should not be going back and forth in a way, but perhaps we should try to understand what's forthcoming as far as the elections are concerned. Who are we going to elect in public offices? Well, in 2022, it's a general election, so we're going to elect the president, the vice president, the members of the Senate, some of them anyway, because there is a continuity that is arranged as far as the timeline of senators are concerned. And then we're also going to elect some 300 of our representatives, that is for the lower chamber. In addition to that, we're also going to elect the governors, the vice governors, the provincial boards, and then the mayors, the vice mayors, the municipal and the city boards, and then we have the barangays. The barangays, as far as they're concerned, have had several postponements in their elections, but I don't know if they will actually be together with the elections that I'm talking about sometime in 2022. What does this mean? It means that all the elected officials we have today, including President Mayor Rodrigo Roa Duterte, will be terminating their offices, and a new set will be coming in, and that will be voted upon by the people. If we go back, as far as our chronicles are concerned, way back, where these elections actually began, well, it's a long history. From the time, for instance, that we were given, what was this, our independence from the United States of America, and even during that time, perhaps, there were also some arrangements that are being made as far as our officials are concerned. But what has happened all the way from the time that we had the first mayor, the first governor, the first president elected? What has happened to our politics? Well, politics comes from the Greek word polis, which just means people. So if you speak about a politician, that person ought to be a representative of the people, or speaking for the people, or taking care of the people, or administering people. So that is as simple as it goes. But what we have today is actually some kind of a, I don't know, I hate to use the word abomination, but there has been, a big change as far as politics is concerned and as far as politicians are concerned. Politics now has been devolved. It has gone through a process of devolution instead of an improvement. If we go back to Plato's Republic, he was the one who actually wrote down exactly what kind of people we're supposed to elect to office. There is an academy of learning for the people that will be running for public office. There is also an academy of learning for people who are going to vote for them. I wish that were true today, because then we can really sort out the kind of people that are putting into office. But what happened in time was, three basic elements actually is what politicians aspire for. First, they have to gain power. Second, they have to gain more power. And third, they have to maintain that power. So it all boils down to just having power and all the appurtenances and the perks and privileges that are attached to it. And that's exactly the spectacle that we see in Congress today. There was an old phrase, we've repeated it so many times: whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make mad. But what's happening with our politicians is actually just a rephrasing of that quote: whom the gods wish to destroy, they first make them Filipino politicians. So that's how it goes. Some time back, politicians were entering public office in a way that they were really competitive as far as the knowledge of the office they're running for. And of course, they were also selected by either a national convention, if it refers to the office of the president, or there was really some kind of a sieving, a choice that you really had several of them. And they were supposed to be the best and the brightest as far as the community was concerned. But time and time again, we have seen that a lot of vested interests have come in, so that people that get elected to office are those people that would be able to carry on whatever those vested interests are in whatever position they're at. Mayors, for instance, didn't have a timeline or some kind of an end in their term. They could be elected and re-elected and re-elected until they get very old, or they get incapacitated, or they die. There was also a time when that was the same as far as other offices were concerned. But well, as I've said, in time, with the devolution of politics, there was already a timeline for them, so that mayors were elected for 4 years, they get elected for another 4 years. And the same thing goes also for representatives. They were called congressmen, but they represent the House of Congress, which has two chambers. They call it the upper chamber, which are the senators, and then the lower chamber, which are the congressmen. They're supposed to represent their districts. But in time, what happened was the Commission on Elections has already set some kind of a provision that says, well, if you have something like 150,000 voters in a place, then you can have one representative. I don't know how this goes, but that kind of a calculation has somehow brought about the great number of people in the House of Representatives today. In addition to them, actually, there was the party list system. The party list was supposed to take care of the people that were marginalized. A very strict provision, actually, which says that those who probably are not represented enough by those running in the ordinary course of a regular district are, for instance, like, well, the elderly or those tricycle drivers and so forth. But that's not supposed to be the case. If you intend to run for a certain office as a representative, then you have to represent everyone, whatever classification, whatever kind of work or non-work that that person has, provided that it is part of your constituency, as they say. So that is what happened. Because of the abuse done with the party list system, we have now something like 300 representatives, many of them coming from a party list. Can you imagine somebody who's very, very rich representing tricycle drivers? Or you have somebody who's also very, very rich representing athletes. So it is not really a matter of representing the marginalized as being one of them, but actually just to be able to run for that office. And that's precisely what has happened, this devolution of politics, as we call it, or how politics and politicians have adulterated the system, such that also, in case there is the time limit that you can only be elected twice or 3 times, then what happens is, so that your seat in Congress will not be occupied by somebody else, then it is either your wife, your mistress, or your brother, or your sister, or a cousin, or anybody within the family takes over your position for the time, and then you go back to it. Anyway, that's how it's done. But what am I talking about? I'm talking about in less than 800 days, look around you and see if you are going to vote into office the same people that we have today. And this refers to exactly what's happening now that we have this pandemic surrounding us. Whether your mayor, your barangay, your governor, or your congressman, or your senator have actually been performing what they ought to do, the responsibilities of public service. How is it often said that public service is supposed to be some kind of a public trust, but that isn't true anyway today. So again, we will try to find out what can be done as far as this is concerned, because time and time again we get entertained by the way they dance and sing on stage, by the way they come up with all their advertisements, all the platitudes that they have painted in their tarpaulins and all of this. They call it ipal, something which is derogatory in a way. But that's exactly what's happening. And sometimes we are also quite lazy to find out and to sort out whether the people we elect into office are actually qualified for this. So it goes that there is a repetition. I don't know if it's some kind of a recidivist syndrome that we're actually having when it comes to elections. But that's the question we have to ask now. While we're all very busy trying to listen to the interagency task force and now the emerging infectious diseases attached to it, we should also be busy thinking of the people that will be governing us about less than 800 days from today. So our chronicles can go back in time and find out exactly what we can do as far as learning lessons, but our chronicles should continue to find out exactly where we are standing as far as voting for people that are qualified are concerned.